Welcome to my channel, I'm Jake Summers, and today we're diving into a tale of love, betrayal, and the kind of heartbreak that leaves you questioning everything. Ethan Walker's seemingly perfect life is shattered when he discovers his wife Amelia's affair with a mutual acquaintance, Liam. As betrayal unravels their marriage, Ethan grapples with heartbreak, anger, and the need to protect their daughter, Lily, from the fallout. The story escalates with Liam's manipulative threats, intrusions, and dangerous behavior, forcing Ethan and Amelia into a tense alliance to safeguard their family. With a mix of infidelity, manipulation, and escalating stakes, this emotional rollercoaster will leave you questioning loyalty, trust, and the limits of forgiveness. Picture this: a cozy suburban neighborhood in Austin, Texas, where the streets are lined with white picket fences and the people seem almost too perfect. Let me introduce you to Ethan Walker, a 34-year-old architect whose life appeared to be as neatly designed as the houses he built. Ethan was the kind of guy you couldn't help but root for: hardworking, kind, and just a little too trusting. He had built himself a life that most people would envy. He was married to Amelia, a stunning brunette who could light up any room with her laugh. At 32, she had the charm and elegance of a movie star, but there was something about her, something beneath the surface that even Ethan couldn't quite put his finger on. The couple had been together for 7 years, married for 5. They didn't have kids yet, though Ethan had been dropping hints for a while. "Maybe next year," Amelia would always say with a playful smile, brushing off the topic like it was a pesky fly. They had a beautiful home, the kind of place that looked straight out of a catalog. Pristine lawn, big bay windows, and a porch swing where they'd sip wine on cool evenings. It was perfect, or so it seemed. But perfection is a fragile thing. Sometimes it cracks. And Ethan was about to find out just how deep those cracks ran. It all started one warm Friday evening in October, a night that should have been like any other. Ethan had just wrapped up a long week at work and was looking forward to a quiet weekend at home. He'd picked up takeout from their favorite Thai place and even splurged on a bottle of wine he knew Amelia loved. When he walked through the front door, the smell of jasmine rice and curry filled the air, and for a moment everything felt normal. "Amelia?" he called out, setting the bags on the kitchen counter. No answer. He glanced at his watch. It was almost 7. Amelia usually got home by 6, so her being late wasn't unheard of, but it wasn't exactly common either. Ethan shrugged it off. She was probably caught up at work, or so he told himself. Half an hour later, Amelia walked in, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. She looked different. Her hair was slightly tousled, her lipstick a little smudged, and her cheeks had a faint flush. Ethan, ever the optimist, didn't think much of it. "Hey, babe," she said, flashing him a quick smile. "Sorry I'm late. The meeting ran over." "No worries," Ethan replied, handing her a glass of wine. "Dinner's ready, I got your favorite." They sat down to eat, and for the most part, the evening was uneventful. They talked about their day, made plans for the weekend, and laughed over some silly inside joke they'd had for years. But as the night went on, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. It wasn't anything obvious, just little things. The way Amelia kept glancing at her phone, the way she seemed a bit distracted, her responses to his stories coming a second too late. Ethan chalked it up to her being tired. He didn't want to be that guy, the one who nitpicks every little thing. So he let it go, at least for the moment. The real trouble started 2 weeks later at their friend Kara's birthday party. Ethan and Amelia were part of a tight-knit social circle, a group of couples who got together for dinners, game nights, and the occasional karaoke session. On this particular night, the party was in full swing. The music was loud, the drinks were flowing, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. Everyone except Ethan. It was subtle at first. Amelia had been spending a lot of time talking to Liam, one of the other husbands in their group. Liam was tall, handsome, and annoyingly charming. The kind of guy who always seemed to have a story to tell and a crowd to tell it to. Ethan didn't think much of it at first. After all, they were all friends. But as the night went on, he started to notice things. The way Amelia laughed a little too hard at Liam's jokes. the way Liam leaned in a little too close when he spoke to her. By the time they left the party, Ethan's mind was racing. Was he being paranoid, or was there something going on? The next morning, Ethan tried to push his suspicions aside. He told himself he was overthinking things, that Amelia was just friendly, and Liam was just Liam. But the doubts lingered, gnawing at the edges of his mind. And then, a week later, he found the first real crack in the facade. Ethan had come home early from work, a rare occurrence, but he'd finished a big project ahead of schedule and decided to surprise Amelia. He opened the door, expecting to find her curled up on the couch with a book or maybe out in the garden, but the house was eerily quiet. "Amelia," he called out. No answer. He walked into the living room and noticed her laptop sitting open on the coffee table. It wasn't like Amelia to leave her laptop unattended. She was meticulous about her things. Curious, Ethan sat down and glanced at the screen. It was open to an email draft. "I can't stop thinking about you. Every time I see you, my heart races. I know this is wrong, but I can't help how I feel. Please don't say anything to anyone. I don't want to ruin everything." Ethan's stomach dropped. The email wasn't addressed to anyone, but the tone was unmistakable. It wasn't meant for him. His hands trembled as he closed the laptop and sat back, his mind reeling. He wanted to believe it was a misunderstanding, that maybe it was a scene from a book she was writing or some kind of joke, but deep down, he knew. This wasn't a joke. This was the beginning of the end. Welcome back to my channel. If you're just joining us, we're unraveling the story of Ethan Walker, a man whose seemingly perfect life is beginning to crack at the seams. In the first part, we saw the early signs of trouble: a wife who seemed distant, a suspicious email, and the heavy weight of doubt creeping into Ethan's mind. Now, things are about to take a darker turn, as secrets start to unravel, and the perfect picture Ethan had of his marriage begins to fall apart. Ethan didn't confront Amelia about the email right away. Instead, he did what so many of us would probably do. He tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe it was part of a project she was working on. Maybe he was just being paranoid. But deep down, Ethan knew better. That email wasn't a fluke, and the sinking feeling in his stomach wouldn't let him ignore it. Over the next few days, Ethan started paying closer attention. He noticed things he'd never paid attention to before. The way Amelia always seemed to keep her phone angled away from him, the sudden and frequent work events that popped up on her schedule, and the way she always seemed to check the clock whenever they were out together, like she had somewhere else she needed to be. It wasn't long before Ethan's suspicions grew into something he couldn't ignore. And that's when he made a decision that would change everything. He needed proof. Ethan wasn't proud of what he did next, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Late one night, after Amelia had fallen asleep, Ethan picked up her phone. His hands were shaking as he unlocked it using her fingerprint, a trick he'd learned from watching her unlock it 100 times. He hated himself for invading her privacy, but he had to know the truth. As he scrolled through her messages, his heart sank. Most of the texts seemed normal: chats with friends, work-related messages, and a group chat with their mutual friends. But then he saw it, a thread with a name he didn't recognize. Liam W. The messages were vague at first, but as he scrolled further, the truth became undeniable. "Last night was amazing. I can't stop thinking about you. I wish I could see you again soon. I miss you." Ethan stared at the screen, his vision blurring as tears filled his eyes. He felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. This wasn't just a suspicion anymore. This was real. His wife, the woman he had loved and trusted for years, was cheating on him. The next morning, Ethan didn't say a word. He couldn't. He felt like he was living in a dream, or maybe a nightmare. He went through the motions of his day, pretending everything was fine, while the messages played over and over in his mind. He didn't confront Amelia. Not yet. He wasn't ready for the confrontation, and honestly, he wasn't sure what he wanted to say. But as the days went on, Ethan's anger began to build. He couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. He needed answers. And so, one evening after dinner, he decided to lay it all out. "Amelia," he began, his voice trembling, "we need to talk. Amelia looked up from her phone, her expression a mix of curiosity and concern. "What's wrong?" Ethan hesitated, trying to find the right words. I saw something on your phone, messages from Liam." The color drained from Amelia's face, and for a moment she didn't say anything. Then she sighed, setting her phone down on the table. "Ethan, I can explain." "Can you?" Ethan asked, his voice rising. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty damn clear you've been lying to me, sneaking around behind my back. Do you have any idea what this feels like?" Amelia looked down at her hands, tears welling up in her eyes. "Ethan, I never meant to hurt you. I swear it just happened." "It just happened?" Ethan repeated, his voice laced with disbelief. "Amelia, we've been married for 5 years. How does something like this just happen?" "I don't know," Amelia cried, her voice breaking. "I was lonely, okay? You've been so busy with work, and I felt like, I don't know, like we were drifting apart. Liam was just there, and he made me feel seen." Ethan shook his head, his heart breaking all over again. "Seen, Amelia? I've been here. I've always been here. You just chose not to see me." The confrontation left Ethan feeling more confused than ever. Part of him wanted to forgive Amelia, to believe that they could somehow move past this, but another part of him, the part that felt betrayed and broken, knew that things could never go back to the way they were. Over the next few weeks, things between them became strained. They tried to go about their daily lives as if nothing had happened, but the tension was impossible to ignore. Ethan found himself withdrawing, spending more time at work and less time at home. Amelia, meanwhile, seemed to be walking on eggshells, unsure of how to fix the damage she had caused. And then, one day, everything came to a head. It was a Saturday afternoon, and Ethan was in the garage working on a project, a bookshelf he'd been meaning to build for months. He found solace in the rhythm of the saw and the smell of freshly cut wood. It was one of the few things that helped him clear his mind. Amelia walked in, hesitating at the door. "Ethan, can we talk?" Ethan sighed, setting down his tools. "What is it?" I want to know what we're doing. Where we're going. I feel like we're stuck, and I don't know how to fix it." Ethan looked at her, his heart aching. "Amelia, I don't know if this can be fixed. I don't even know if I want to fix it. You broke something in me, and I don't know if I can ever get that back." Tears streamed down Amelia's face as she nodded. "I understand. I want you to know that I'm sorry for everything." Ethan didn't say anything. He couldn't. He just turned back to his work, letting the sound of the saw drown out the silence between them. And there you have it, folks, part 2 of Ethan's story. The cracks in his marriage are widening, and the question now is whether those cracks can ever be repaired. Stay tuned, because things are only going to get more intense from here. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you more incredible stories like this one. Welcome back to my channel. If you've been following Ethan's journey so far, you already know this story is filled with heartbreak and tension. But now, we're moving into the part where things really start to unravel. Secrets will be exposed, loyalties tested, and Ethan will find himself standing at a crossroads he never imagined. Buckle up. This is where the story hits its most intense moments. After weeks of tension and silence, Ethan decided he couldn't keep living in limbo. He needed clarity, and more importantly, he needed to reclaim control of his life. The confrontation with Amelia had shaken him to his core, but it wasn't enough. He needed answers. And so, Ethan did something he never thought he'd do. He hired a private investigator. The decision wasn't an easy one. Ethan felt a pang of guilt as he handed over the details to the investigator, a no-nonsense woman named Maria Carter. Maria assured him that she'd seen cases like his countless times before, and she promised to give him the truth, no matter how painful it might be. The days that followed were some of the longest of Ethan's life. Every time his phone buzzed, his heart would race, wondering if it was Maria with an update. He threw himself into his work, trying to keep his mind occupied, but the uncertainty hung over him like a storm cloud. Then, one evening, Maria called. Her tone was professional, but there was a hint of compassion in her voice. "Ethan," she said, "I've got something for you. Can we meet?" Ethan's stomach churned as he agreed. They met at a small coffee shop, where Maria slid a manila envelope across the table. Ethan hesitated for a moment before opening it, his hands trembling. Inside were photos, dozens of them. Amelia and Liam, together at a hotel, at a bar, walking hand in hand through a park. Each image was like a knife to the heart. Maria cleared her throat. "There's more," she said gently, sliding over a small USB drive. "These are audio recordings, phone calls. Mostly I figured you'd want everything." Ethan nodded numbly, barely able to process what he was seeing. "Thank you," he managed to say, his voice barely above a whisper. Maria placed a hand on his shoulder. "I know this is hard, but you deserve to know the truth. Take care of yourself, Ethan." Ethan spent the next few hours in his car, parked outside his house, listening to the recordings. Each one confirmed what he already knew. Amelia and Liam had been having an affair for months. The casual intimacy in their voices, the way they laughed and shared private jokes. It was unbearable, but it was the last recording that truly broke him. In the recording, Amelia admitted to Liam that she wasn't sure if she wanted to stay with Ethan. "He's a good man," she said, her voice wavering. "But I don't think I love him anymore. Not like I used to." Those words echoed in Ethan's mind, shattering the last remnants of hope he had been clinging to. The next day, Ethan made a decision. He couldn't keep living like this, pretending everything was fine. He needed to confront Amelia, once and for all. That evening, as she came home from work, Ethan was waiting for her in the living room. The envelope and USB drive sat on the coffee table, a silent testament to the truth. "Ethan," Amelia began, her voice tinged with nervousness. "What's going on?" Ethan gestured to the table. "Sit down." Amelia hesitated but did as he asked. Her eyes flicked to the envelope, and Ethan saw the moment realization dawned on her. Her face went pale. "I know everything," Ethan said, his voice calm but icy. "The hotel. The phone calls, the lies I know about you and Liam." Amelia's eyes filled with tears. "Ethan, please, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," Ethan snapped, his voice rising. "You made your choice, Amelia. You didn't just betray me. You betrayed us, our marriage, our life together. Was it worth it? Was he worth it?" Amelia sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "I don't know," she whispered. "I was confused, Ethan. I was lost." "Don't give me that," Ethan shot back. "You weren't lost. You knew exactly what you were doing, and now you've lost me." The confrontation marked a turning point for Ethan. He realized he couldn't stay in the house with Amelia any longer. The memories of their life together, the good and the bad, were too much to bear. So, he packed a bag and left, crashing at a friend's place for the time being. But even as he tried to distance himself, the pain lingered. Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the life he had built with Amelia and how it had all fallen apart. He found himself replaying moments from their past. Their first date, their wedding day, the quiet nights they'd spent talking about their dreams for the future. It felt like another lifetime. Meanwhile, Amelia was grappling with her own guilt. She knew she had made a mistake, a series of mistakes, but she wasn't sure how to fix it. She called Ethan repeatedly, leaving tearful voicemails and begging him to come home, but he ignored them. The damage had been done, and Ethan wasn't sure if he could ever forgive her. As the days turned into weeks, Ethan began to pick up the pieces of his life. He met with a divorce lawyer, started going to therapy, and leaned on his friends for support. It wasn't easy, but slowly, he started to see a path forward. Then came the unexpected twist. One evening, as Ethan was sorting through some paperwork, he received a text from an unknown number. It was Liam. "Ethan, we need to talk." Ethan stared at the screen, his anger flaring. He wasn't sure why Liam would dare to contact him, but a part of him was curious. Against his better judgment, he agreed to meet. They met at a bar where Liam looked visibly nervous. He fidgeted with his drink, avoiding eye contact with Ethan. "Why are we here, Liam?" Ethan asked, his voice cold. Liam took a deep breath. "I messed up," he admitted. "I never should have gotten involved with Amelia. It was selfish, and I hurt a lot of people." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And you think an apology is going to fix that?" "No," Liam said quickly. "I don't, but I thought you deserved to know. She's ending things with me. She said she wants to try to fix things with you." Ethan laughed bitterly. "Fix things? There's nothing left to fix. She destroyed everything." Liam nodded, looking ashamed. "I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but, for what it's worth, I'm sorry." Ethan didn't respond. He simply stood up and walked out, leaving Liam alone with his guilt. The meeting with Liam left Ethan feeling conflicted. On one hand, he was glad Amelia had ended things with him, but on the other hand, it didn't change what she had done. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild, and so Ethan made a choice. He wasn't going to let this define him. He wasn't going to let the pain consume him. He was going to move forward, without Amelia. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Ethan's journey is far from over, but he's taken the first steps toward healing. Stay tuned, because the story isn't finished yet. Before we wrap up, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps us bring you more powerful stories like this one. Welcome back to my channel. If you've been following Ethan's journey, you know we're on the verge of something big. Ethan has discovered the heartbreaking truth about Amelia's betrayal, but the story isn't over yet. In this part, we're diving into the moments that bring the tension to a boiling point, where every decision carries the weight of the future. So grab your coffee, or maybe something stronger, and let's get back into it. Ethan had resolved to move on without Amelia, but life has a funny way of complicating even the best-laid plans. Just when he thought he'd started to gain a semblance of control, a knock at the door shattered his fragile peace. It was Amelia. Ethan hesitated before opening the door. Seeing her face again, pale, tear-streaked and full of regret, stirred a mix of emotions he wasn't prepared for: anger, sadness. And somewhere, buried beneath the hurt, a flicker of love he couldn't quite extinguish. "Ethan," Amelia began, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I'm the last person you want to see, but please, just hear me out." Ethan crossed his arms, leaning against the doorframe. "You've got 5 minutes." Amelia stepped inside, glancing around the apartment as if searching for traces of the life they used to share. She took a deep breath, her hands trembling. "I ended things with Liam," she said. "Completely. He's out of my life. I realized what a mistake I made. Ethan, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know. I want to try to make things right." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Make things right, Amelia. You didn't just break my heart, you burned it to the ground. You made me question everything about our life together. How am I supposed to just forget that?" "I'm not asking you to forget," Amelia said, tears streaming down her face. "I'm asking for a chance to prove to you that I can be better, that we can be better." Ethan stared at her, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Part of him wanted to slam the door and never look back. But another part, the part that had spent years building a life with her, hesitated. Could he really walk away from everything they'd shared? Or was it too late to save what they had? "I need time," Ethan said finally, his voice heavy with emotion. "Time to figure out what I want, and what I can live with." Amelia nodded, her relief palpable. "Take all the time you need, I'll wait. I'll do whatever it takes, Ethan. I don't want to lose you." The days that followed were some of the hardest Ethan had ever faced. He threw himself into work, hoping to distract himself from the turmoil in his heart, but every quiet moment brought Amelia's words rushing back. Could he trust her again? Did he even want to? Ethan sought advice from his therapist, friends, and even his parents, but everyone had a different opinion. Some urged him to move on, to leave the past behind, and start fresh. Others suggested that love, real love, was worth fighting for, even if it meant risking more pain. But Ethan knew the decision was his alone, and no matter what he chose, there would be no going back. Meanwhile, Amelia wasn't idle. She began attending therapy herself, determined to confront the issues that had led to her betrayal. She sent Ethan letters, real, handwritten letters, explaining her feelings, her regrets, and her hopes for the future. She didn't ask for forgiveness outright. Instead, she offered honesty, vulnerability, and a promise to change. At first, Ethan ignored the letters, but one night, unable to sleep, he found himself reading them. Her words were raw and unpolished, filled with pain and self-awareness. For the first time, Ethan saw a side of Amelia he hadn't seen before, a woman grappling with her flaws and desperate to make amends. But was it enough? Just as Ethan began to consider the possibility of reconciliation, another curveball was thrown his way. Maria, the private investigator, called him with unexpected news. "Ethan, I found something else," she said. "I wasn't going to tell you, but I think you deserve to know." Ethan's stomach churned. "What is it?" "There's more to Liam than meets the eye," Maria explained. "He's been involved in multiple affairs, not just with Amelia, and there's evidence that he's been embezzling money from his company. I thought you might want to use this, if things escalate." Ethan was stunned. Liam's betrayal wasn't just personal, it was professional too. The man who had helped destroy his marriage was also a fraud. And now, Ethan held the power to expose him. Armed with this new information, Ethan faced a choice. He could confront Liam, use the evidence to ruin his career and ensure he paid for what he'd done, or he could rise above it, focus on his own healing, and let karma take its course. Ethan decided on a middle ground. He met with Liam one final time, presenting the evidence without directly threatening him. "You need to fix your life, Liam," Ethan said, his voice steady but firm. "Because if you don't, someone else will. And trust me, they won't be as forgiving." Liam paled, his cocky demeanor crumbling. I'll take care of it," he stammered. "Good," Ethan said, "because I'm done with this, and I'm done with you." The confrontation with Liam gave Ethan a sense of closure, but it didn't solve his problems with Amelia. The path ahead was still uncertain, and the weight of his decision loomed over him like a storm cloud. In a moment of clarity, Ethan decided to take a step back. From Amelia, from his job, from everything, he booked a solo trip to a small cabin in the mountains, hoping the solitude would give him the perspective he needed. For 2 weeks, Ethan hiked, read, and wrote in a journal he hadn't touched in years. He reflected on his marriage, his own flaws, and what he truly wanted from life. The stillness of the mountains allowed him to confront his emotions head-on, without the noise of the outside world. And when he returned, he was ready. Ethan called Amelia and asked her to meet him at the park where they'd had their first date. It was a symbolic gesture, one that carried the weight of their shared history. As they sat on the same bench where they'd once laughed and dreamed of the future, Ethan spoke with a newfound sense of clarity. "Amelia," he began, "I've spent a lot of time thinking about us, about what we had and what we lost. And I've realized something. I don't hate you. I don't want to punish you. But I also can't forget what happened. Trust isn't something you can rebuild overnight." Amelia nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes, Ethan, even if it means waiting forever." Ethan smiled sadly. "I don't want you to wait forever. Life is too short for that, I think. I think we need to let each other go, not because we don't love each other, but because sometimes love isn't enough." Amelia's sobs echoed through the park as Ethan reached out and held her hand one last time. "I'll always care about you," he said, "but it's time for us both to find a new path." The decision wasn't easy, but it was the right one. Ethan and Amelia parted ways amicably, each determined to learn from their mistakes and build a better future. Apart, Ethan sold the house, started fresh in a new city, and eventually found peace in the life he rebuilt. Amelia continued her therapy, vowing to become the best version of herself, even if it meant doing so alone. Their story wasn't a happy ending, but it was a real one. And sometimes that's the best we can hope for, and that's where we'll leave Ethan's story. It's a reminder that love, while powerful, isn't always enough to overcome betrayal, but it's also a story of resilience, growth, and finding the strength to move forward. Before we wrap up, don't forget to like, comment, and unsubscribe to my channel. Your support helps us bring you more unforgettable stories like this one. Welcome back to my channel. If you've been following this emotional roller coaster of a story, you know we've reached a pivotal point. Ethan has discovered the depths of Amelia's betrayal, confronted her and Liam, and made the difficult decision to let go of their marriage. But the story isn't over yet. We're diving into the most intense moments, where emotions run high and everything hangs in the balance. Let's see how this chapter unfolds. For Ethan, life after Amelia was a series of small victories and crushing realizations. Every step forward, finding a new apartment, attending therapy, even buying a new set of dishes, was a reminder of the life he was leaving behind. But with every step came a question. Was this the right choice? Amelia wasn't making things easy, either. Despite their agreement to part ways, she continued to reach out, her messages oscillating between heartfelt apologies and desperate pleas. At first, Ethan ignored them, but one message stopped him cold. "Ethan, I need to talk to you. It's important, please." The vagueness of her words sent a chill down his spine. Against his better judgment, he agreed to meet her one last time. They met at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. Ethan was braced for another emotional conversation, but what Amelia said left him stunned. "I'm pregnant," she admitted, her voice barely audible. The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Ethan felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. "What?" he managed to choke out. "I found out last week," Amelia continued, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know how this happened. I mean, I know how, but I wasn't expecting it. And before you ask, it's yours." Ethan's mind raced. The timeline made sense. They'd still been intimate in the weeks before everything fell apart, but the news felt like a cruel twist of fate. Just when he thought he was moving on, the universe threw him a curveball. "Are you sure?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. Amelia nodded. "I had the dates checked. It's ours, Ethan." The revelation threw Ethan into a whirlwind of emotions. On one hand, he was furious that Amelia's betrayal had already shattered his life, and now this would complicate things even further. But on the other hand, he felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility. This wasn't just about him and Amelia anymore. There was a child involved, a life that hadn't asked to be part of their messy story. For days, Ethan grappled with what to do. He talked to his therapist, his parents, and even Maria, the investigator who had become an unexpected confidant. Everyone had different advice. Some told him to cut ties with Amelia and focus on co-parenting from a distance. Others urged him to consider reconciliation for the sake of the child, but deep down, Ethan knew there were no easy answers. Amelia, for her part, was trying to navigate the situation with equal uncertainty. She had hoped the pregnancy might be a way to reconnect with Ethan, but she quickly realized that wasn't realistic. The damage she had done couldn't be undone, and Ethan's trust in her was still shattered. Still, she was determined to be a good mother, no matter what the future held. In a rare moment of vulnerability, Amelia wrote Ethan a letter, one that she poured her heart into. She didn't ask for forgiveness or a second chance. Instead, she expressed her hope that they could find a way to raise their child together, even if it meant staying apart. Ethan read the letter late one night, his emotions swirling. He appreciated Amelia's honesty, but it didn't make his decision any easier. He knew he had to face the situation head-on, no matter how painful it might be. A week later, Ethan invited Amelia to meet him at the same park where they'd parted ways. The symbolism wasn't lost on either of them, and the tension was palpable as they sat on the weathered bench. "I've thought about everything," Ethan began, his voice steady, "and I've made a decision." Amelia's breath hitched, her eyes searching his face. "I'm going to be there for our child," Ethan said firmly. "I'll support you during the pregnancy, and I'll be the best father I can be, but that doesn't mean we're getting back together." Amelia nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I understand, thank you, Ethan. That means more than you know." With that, they began the delicate process of navigating their new reality. They set boundaries, agreeing to focus on co-parenting and keeping their personal issues separate. It wasn't easy. There were moments of tension, miscommunication, and old wounds reopening. but both were committed to doing what was best for their child. As the months passed, Ethan found himself growing into his new role. He attended doctor's appointments, helped Amelia prepare the nursery, and even started reading parenting books. Despite the pain and anger that lingered between them, he couldn't deny the excitement he felt about becoming a father. Amelia, too, was changing. The pregnancy forced her to confront her own flaws and take responsibility for her actions. She continued therapy, worked on rebuilding trust with those around her, and focused on preparing for the baby's arrival. But just when it seemed like they had found a fragile equilibrium, another twist shattered their fragile peace. It started with a phone call from Liam. "Ethan," Liam said, his voice filled with panic. "We need to talk, now." Ethan's stomach churned. He had hoped he'd seen the last of Liam, but the urgency in his voice suggested otherwise. Against his better judgment, he agreed to meet. When they sat down at a diner, Liam wasted no time. "I know about the baby," he said, his tone accusatory, "and I'm not convinced it's yours." Ethan's fists clenched. "What are you trying to say, Liam?" "I'm saying there's a chance it's mine," Liam replied. "And I want a paternity test." Ethan's mind reeled. The thought had never crossed his mind. Amelia had been so adamant that the baby was his. But now, doubt began to creep in. Could she have been lying? Could Liam's claim have merit? Ethan confronted Amelia that evening, his anger barely contained. "Is there any chance the baby isn't mine?" he demanded. Amelia looked horrified. "No, Ethan, I swear to you. It's yours, I never—" "Liam is lying. He's trying to stir up trouble." But Ethan wasn't sure what to believe. The uncertainty was unbearable, and he knew there was only one way to get the truth. "We're doing a paternity test," he said firmly. "I need to know for sure." Amelia nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "Whatever it takes, I'll do it." The days leading up to the test results were some of the longest of Ethan's life. Every possibility played out in his mind, each one more devastating than the last. He tried to focus on work, on friends, on anything to keep himself distracted, but the weight of the uncertainty was crushing. Finally, the day came. Ethan opened the envelope with trembling hands, his heart pounding in his chest. He read the words slowly, his breath catching. "The child is Ethan's." Relief washed over him, but it was quickly followed by a wave of exhaustion. The ordeal had taken a toll on him, and he realized just how much he had been holding on to the possibility of betrayal. With the paternity confirmed, Ethan and Amelia redoubled their efforts to focus on the future. When their daughter Lily was born a few months later, everything changed. Holding her for the first time, Ethan felt a love he hadn't known was possible, a love that made all the pain and heartache worth it. Co-parenting wasn't easy, but they found a rhythm that worked for them. They weren't perfect, but they were trying, and in the end, that was enough. And there you have it, folks, the intense climax of Ethan's journey. It's a story of heartbreak, resilience, and finding strength in the face of unimaginable challenges. Ethan's life will never be the same, but he's discovered something even more important: the power of love, not just for others, but for himself. Before we wrap up, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps us continue sharing these incredible tales. Welcome back to my channel. The stakes have never been higher as Ethan navigates the fallout of Amelia's betrayal and the arrival of their daughter, Lily. The tension is rising, the emotions are raw, and the path forward is anything but clear. As we delve deeper into the story, get ready for twists, revelations, and a confrontation that will leave you breathless. Let's dive in. The birth of Lily marked a turning point in Ethan's life. Holding her tiny hand for the first time, he felt a surge of love that was both overwhelming and transformative. For a moment, all the pain, anger, and uncertainty melted away, replaced by a singular focus, being the best father he could be. But the peace was short-lived. Co-parenting with Amelia, while civil on the surface, was rife with unspoken tension. Every interaction was a delicate dance, each of them tiptoeing around the emotional minefield of their shared past. And then there was Liam, whose shadow continued to loom over their fragile truce. It wasn't long before Liam inserted himself back into the picture. One afternoon, as Ethan was picking Lily up from Amelia's house, he found Liam sitting on the porch. The sight of him was like a punch to the gut. "What the hell are you doing here?" Ethan demanded, his voice cold. Liam stood, hands raised in mock surrender. "Relax, Ethan, I'm just here to talk." Ethan's jaw tightened. "We have nothing to talk about." "Actually, we do," Liam said, his tone smug. "Amelia and we've been talking." Ethan's stomach dropped. He turned to Amelia, who stood frozen in the doorway, her face pale. "Is this true?" he asked, his voice trembling. Amelia hesitated, then nodded. "He reached out a few weeks ago. I told him we couldn't have any contact, but he keeps showing up." Liam smirked. "She didn't seem to mind the last time we talked." The rage that Ethan had been suppressing for months bubbled to the surface. He stepped closer to Liam, his fists clenched. "You need to leave now." "Or what?" Liam taunted, his cocky grin widening. "You're going to hit me in front of your kid?" Ethan took a deep breath, forcing himself to stay calm. "If you come near my family again, I'll make sure you regret it." Liam's smile faltered, and for a moment he looked genuinely intimidated. Without another word, he walked away, leaving Ethan and Amelia standing in tense silence. The confrontation with Liam was a wake-up call for Amelia. She realized that her failure to set firm boundaries had put both Ethan and Lily in an impossible position. That evening, she called Ethan, her voice heavy with remorse. "I'm sorry," she said. "I should have told you about Liam. I didn't think he'd actually come around again." Ethan sighed, his exhaustion evident. "Amelia, you need to figure out what you want, because I can't keep doing this. Lily deserves better." Amelia's voice cracked. "I know, and I promise. I'm done with him for good this time." Ethan wanted to believe her, but the trust between them was still too fractured. He decided to focus on what he could control, his relationship with Lily. Over the next few months, Ethan poured himself into fatherhood. He reveled in the small moments, Lily's first smile, her tiny giggles, the way her eyes lit up whenever she saw him. For the first time in a long time, Ethan felt a sense of purpose that went beyond the pain of his past. Amelia, too, was trying to rebuild her life. She started attending a support group for single parents, where she found a community of people who understood her struggles. She continued therapy and worked tirelessly to prove to Ethan that she was serious about co-parenting. But just as they were beginning to find a semblance of stability, another bombshell dropped. One evening, Ethan received a call from Maria, the private investigator. Her voice was urgent. "Ethan, we need to meet. It's about Liam." Ethan's heart sank. "What now?" "Just meet me," Maria insisted. "It's important." When they met at a diner, Maria wasted no time. She slid a folder across the table, her expression grim. "Liam's been arrested," she said. Ethan opened the folder, scanning the documents inside fraud, embezzlement, multiple counts of harassment. The list of charges was staggering. Maria continued, "I thought you should know because, well, there's a chance he might try to drag you and Amelia into this. He's desperate, and desperate people do reckless things." Ethan's mind raced. The idea of Liam causing more chaos in their lives was unbearable, but at the same time, he felt a grim sense of satisfaction. Liam was finally facing the consequences of his actions. True to Maria's warning, Liam tried to make trouble. From his jail cell, he began spreading rumors, claiming that Amelia had been complicit in his schemes. The accusations were baseless, but they caused a ripple of tension in Amelia's life. Friends and acquaintances began to question her, and the whispers grew louder. Amelia turned to Ethan for support, her desperation evident. "I didn't do anything," she insisted. "You have to believe me." Ethan nodded. "I do. But we need to be smart about this. Liam's trying to drag us down with him, and we can't let him." Together they consulted a lawyer, who helped them navigate the legal quagmire. It was a stressful, exhausting process, but in the end, they managed to clear Amelia's name. Liam's lies were exposed, and he was left to face his punishment alone. The ordeal with Liam brought Ethan and Amelia closer in an unexpected way. While they still had their differences, they found themselves united in their determination to protect Lily and rebuild their lives. Slowly but surely, the walls between them began to come down. One evening, after putting Lily to bed, they sat on the porch of Amelia's house, sipping tea and watching the stars. "I never thought we'd get to this point," Amelia said softly, "where we could actually talk like this." Ethan smiled faintly. "Neither did I, but I think we've both grown a lot." Amelia looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Ethan, for not giving up on Lily and for not giving up on me." Ethan's expression turned serious. "I didn't do it for you, Amelia. I did it for Lily. She deserves the best from both of us." Amelia nodded, her heart heavy with the weight of her mistakes. She knew she still had a long way to go to earn Ethan's forgiveness. But for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. As the months turned into years, Ethan and Amelia found a new rhythm. They co-parented with respect and compassion, putting Lily's needs above their own. While their romantic relationship was a thing of the past, their shared love for Lily created a bond that couldn't be broken. Ethan eventually found love again, meeting someone who reminded him of the joy and trust he thought he'd lost forever. Amelia, too, began to heal, focusing on her career and her relationship with Lily. Their lives were far from perfect, but they were moving forward. And that, my friends, is where we'll leave Ethan's story. It's a tale of heartbreak, resilience, and the power of second chances, not in love, but in life. Ethan and Amelia's journey reminds us that even in the darkest moments, there's always a path to healing. Before we go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful, emotional tales. Welcome back to my channel. If you've been following this emotional saga, you know Ethan and Amelia's story has been nothing short of a whirlwind. We've seen betrayal, heartbreak, and the struggles of co-parenting, all while navigating the shadow of Liam's manipulations. But now, we're heading into the final stages of this journey. Get ready for the most intense moments yet, as tensions rise and the stakes reach their peak. It had been nearly 3 years since Ethan and Amelia had parted ways as a couple, and their lives had settled into a fragile but functional rhythm. Lily, now a precocious toddler, was the light of Ethan's life. Her laughter filled the spaces that had once felt empty, and her wide-eyed curiosity reminded him of the beauty in starting anew. But while Ethan had moved forward, he hadn't entirely moved on. The wounds of Amelia's betrayal had faded into scars, but there were moments, fleeting, painful moments, when the memories came rushing back. And as much as he tried to ignore it, there was still a part of him that wondered, had he made the right choice? The calm was shattered one crisp autumn morning when Ethan received an unexpected phone call. It was Amelia, her voice panicked and urgent. "Ethan, I need your help," she said, her words tumbling over each other. "Liam's out. He's been released on parole." Ethan's grip on the phone tightened. "What does that have to do with us?" Amelia hesitated, then sighed. "He's been sending me messages, threatening ones. I don't know what he wants, but I'm scared, Ethan." Ethan's blood ran cold. The idea of Liam re-entering their lives was unthinkable. He had already caused enough damage, and the thought of him targeting Amelia, or worse, Lily, was enough to ignite a protective fury in Ethan's chest. "Send me the messages," Ethan said firmly. "I'll take care of this." The messages were as disturbing as Amelia had described. Liam's tone was menacing, filled with veiled threats and accusations. He claimed Amelia had ruined his life, and he hinted at wanting revenge. Ethan knew they couldn't ignore this. Liam was unpredictable, and that made him dangerous. Ethan immediately contacted Maria, the private investigator who had helped him before. Within hours, Maria had uncovered Liam's location and current circumstances. He was staying in a dingy motel on the outskirts of town, living on the fringes of society after losing everything in his legal battles. "He's desperate," Maria warned, "and desperate people can be reckless. You need to be careful." Ethan nodded. "I just want to make sure he stays away from my family." That evening, Ethan met with Amelia to discuss their next steps. It was the first time in months they had sat down together without Lily, and the tension between them was palpable. "I think we need to go to the police," Amelia said, her voice trembling. "We can't take any chances with him." Ethan agreed, but he also knew the justice system wasn't foolproof. Restraining orders were just pieces of paper, and Liam had already proven he was willing to cross boundaries. "I'll handle this," Ethan said, his tone resolute. "I won't let him hurt you or Lily." Amelia looked at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and something else, something deeper. "Thank you, Ethan. I don't deserve your kindness after everything I've done. But thank you." Ethan didn't respond. He wasn't doing this for Amelia. He was doing it for Lily. The situation escalated quickly. Despite the restraining order Amelia obtained, Liam began showing up near her house, lurking in the shadows like a predator stalking its prey. One evening, as Amelia was putting Lily to bed, she heard a noise outside, a faint tapping on the window. When she pulled back the curtain, she saw Liam's face, twisted with anger and malice. She screamed, grabbing her phone and calling Ethan. By the time Ethan arrived, Liam was gone, but the damage had been done. Amelia was shaken to her core, and Ethan knew they couldn't keep living in fear. "We're not waiting for him to make the first move," Ethan said, his voice firm. "We're taking control." Ethan and Maria devised a plan to confront Liam directly, hoping to put an end to his harassment once and for all. Armed with evidence of his threats and violations of the restraining order, they planned to force him back into the legal system where he belonged. The confrontation took place in the parking lot of the motel where Liam was staying. Ethan approached him calmly but with an air of authority that left no room for negotiation. "This ends now," Ethan said, his voice steady. "You're not going to hurt Amelia or Lily. If you come near them again, I'll make sure you spend the rest of your life behind bars." Liam sneered, but there was fear in his eyes. "You think you can scare me? You don't know what I've been through." "I don't care what you've been through," Ethan shot back. "You made your choices, now live with the consequences. But if you come near my family again, I'll make sure you regret it." For a moment, Liam looked like he might lash out, but then he seemed to deflate. The fight went out of him, and he turned away, muttering curses under his breath. Ethan didn't wait to see what he would do next. He filed the necessary reports with the police, ensuring Liam's actions were documented. And while the encounter had been nerve-wracking, Ethan felt a sense of relief knowing he had taken a stand. In the weeks that followed, Liam faded from their lives. The police kept a close watch, and Maria continued to provide updates, ensuring that he stayed out of sight. For the first time in months, Ethan and Amelia were able to breathe a little easier. The experience brought them closer as co-parents, solidifying their commitment to putting Lily first. While their romantic relationship was firmly in the past, their shared determination to protect their daughter created a bond of mutual respect. One evening, as Ethan was tucking Lily into bed, she looked up at him with her big, curious eyes. "Daddy," she said, her voice soft, "are you and Mommy friends?" Ethan hesitated, then smiled. "We're something better than friends, sweetie. We're a team, and we'll always be here for you." Lily's smile lit up the room, and in that moment, Ethan realized that while his life hadn't turned out the way he'd planned, it was exactly where he needed to be. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Ethan's journey has been one of heartbreak, resilience, and ultimately, hope. While the scars of the past will never fully fade, he's found a new sense of purpose in his role as a father, and he's learned that sometimes the strongest bonds are forged in the fires of adversity. Before we go, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps us bring you more powerful emotional tales like this one. Welcome back to my channel. If you've made it this far, you know the stakes in Ethan's story have reached a boiling point. Liam's shadow looms large, Amelia and Ethan are navigating the fallout of his threats, and little Lily has become the anchor in their turbulent lives. As we move into the most intense moments of this tale, emotions will run high, secrets will be revealed, and the choices our characters make will determine everything. Let's get into it. It had been 3 months since Liam's abrupt exit from their lives, and while things had seemingly calmed down, a lingering unease hung in the air. Ethan had started to let his guard down, believing they might finally be free of Liam's interference. But just as peace began to settle, a letter arrived in Amelia's mailbox, unsigned but unmistakably from Liam. The message was cryptic, yet chilling. "You thought I was gone. You thought wrong. Watch your back." Amelia called Ethan immediately, her voice trembling. "He's not done, Ethan. He's still out there." Ethan's first instinct was to call Maria. When she reviewed the letter, her response was grim. "This isn't just a threat. It's a warning he's planning something." Ethan and Amelia decided to take additional precautions. Amelia temporarily moved in with her sister, and Ethan installed security cameras around his home. They reported the letter to the police, but as usual, there wasn't much they could do without concrete evidence of a direct threat. Meanwhile, Ethan found himself slipping into a state of hypervigilance. Every shadow, every unfamiliar car parked on the street, felt like a potential danger. He hated living in fear, but more than anything, he hated the thought of Lily being caught in the crossfire. The tension reached a fever pitch one evening when Ethan returned home to find his front door slightly ajar. His heart pounded as he stepped inside, scanning the room for signs of an intruder. At first glance, nothing seemed out of place, but then he noticed a framed photo of Lily and Amelia on the floor. The glass shattered. Ethan's blood ran cold. Someone had been in his house. He called the police, who conducted a sweep but found no sign of forced entry. "It could have been the wind," one officer suggested. Though the look in his eyes said he didn't believe his own words, Ethan knew better. This was a message. Determined not to let fear dictate his life, Ethan took matters into his own hands. He reached out to an old friend, Paul, who worked as a security consultant. Together, they devised a plan to increase Ethan's security measures and establish a clear record of Liam's ongoing harassment. Paul's advice was blunt but effective. The best way to deal with someone like Liam is to make it clear that you're not afraid. He thrives on intimidation. Take that away from him, and he loses his power. Ethan took those words to heart. Even as the anxiety continued to gnaw at him, he started taking self-defense classes, not just for his own peace of mind, but for Lily's safety as well. Every punch, every kick was fueled by a deep, unrelenting determination to protect his daughter at all costs. The breaking point came on a rainy Friday night. Amelia was staying with her sister, and Ethan had just put Lily to bed when his phone buzzed with a notification from the security cameras someone was outside. Ethan pulled up the live feed and saw a figure standing in the shadows near his back fence. His stomach clenched as he recognized the outline. It was Liam. Without thinking, Ethan grabbed a flashlight and headed outside, his heart pounding. The rain soaked through his clothes as he approached the fence, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the darkness. "Liam!" he shouted. "I know you're there. Show yourself." For a moment, there was silence. Then, Liam stepped forward, his face twisted into a smug grin. "Nice setup you've got here," Liam said, his tone mocking. "Very secure." "What the hell do you want?" Ethan demanded, his voice steady despite the fear coursing through him. Liam chuckled. "I just wanted to see if you're as tough as you act. Turns out you're not." Ethan took a step closer, his fists clenched. "Leave now, or I'll make sure you regret it." Liam's grin faltered, and for a moment, Ethan saw a flicker of doubt in his eyes. But then, Liam took a step back, raising his hands in mock surrender. "Relax, Walker. I'm just here to talk." "We're done talking," Ethan snapped. "Stay away from my family, or I swear—" Liam cut him off. "Or what you'll call the cops. Go ahead, I'll be gone before they get here." Ethan's patience snapped. He lunged at Liam, grabbing him by the collar and shoving him against the fence. "You don't scare me, Liam. And if you ever come near my family again, I'll make sure you regret it for the rest of your miserable life." Liam's smirk disappeared, replaced by genuine fear. For a moment, neither of them moved, the rain pouring down around them. Then, without a word, Liam pushed Ethan away and disappeared into the night. The encounter left Ethan shaken but resolute. He immediately filed another report with the police, and Maria intensified her surveillance of Liam's activities. Meanwhile, Ethan and Amelia began discussing the possibility of relocating, starting fresh in a new city where Liam couldn't find them. But before they could finalize their plans, another twist changed everything. One evening, Maria called with an update that left Ethan reeling. "Liam's been arrested again," she said, "this time for assaulting someone else." Ethan felt a surge of relief, but Maria's next words stopped him cold. "He's claiming it was self-defense, and he's using you and Amelia as part of his alibi." "What?" Ethan said, his voice filled with disbelief. Maria sighed. He's saying he was provoked because of everything that's happened with you two. He's trying to paint himself as the victim. Ethan's hands tightened into fists. What can we do? Stay calm, Maria said, and be ready to testify if it comes to that. His pattern of behavior speaks for itself, but we need to make sure the truth comes out. The trial was a tense, emotional ordeal. Ethan and Amelia both testified, recounting Liam's threats and harassment in painstaking detail. It wasn't easy, especially with Liam's defense team trying to twist their words, but they stood their ground. In the end, the evidence was overwhelming. Liam's history of violence and manipulation was laid bare for all to see, and the jury didn't take long to reach a verdict, guilty on all counts. Liam was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, and for the first time in years, Ethan and Amelia felt a sense of closure. The threat was finally gone. As the dust settled, Ethan and Amelia took stock of their lives. They had weathered a storm that could have destroyed them, and while their relationship would never return to what it once was, they had forged a new kind of bond, one built on mutual respect and a shared commitment to their daughter. For Ethan, the experience had been transformative. He had faced his fears, stood up to a bully, and rediscovered his strength, and in the process, he had found something even more important, the ability to let go of the past and embrace the future. And that's where we'll leave Ethan's story. It's been a journey of heartbreak, resilience, and ultimately, triumph. Ethan's life may not have turned out the way he expected, but he's stronger, wiser, and ready to face whatever comes next. Before we wrap up, don't forget to like, comment, and monitor subscribe to my channel. Your support helps us bring you more stories that inspire and move you. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a journey filled with twists, heartbreak, and redemption, but now we've reached the end of Ethan's story. All the struggles, all the conflicts, and all the emotions have led to this final chapter. Let's see how Ethan and Amelia move forward after everything they've endured. Buckle up for a resolution that's as poignant as it is satisfying. The courtroom victory against Liam marked the end of a long and painful chapter in Ethan and Amelia's lives. For the first time in years, they could breathe freely, knowing the threat to their family was finally behind them. But the end of Liam's reign of terror wasn't the end of their journey. It was the beginning of something new. Ethan found himself reflecting on everything that had brought him to this point. From the betrayal that shattered his marriage to the trials that tested his resilience, he had emerged stronger and more self-aware. He had learned to embrace the messy, unpredictable nature of life and to find joy in the little moments, like Lily's laughter or the quiet satisfaction of building something with his own hands. As for Amelia, the ordeal with Liam forced her to take a long, hard look at her life. She realized how her past mistakes had set so many of these events into motion, and she was determined to become the best version of herself. Not for Ethan, not for redemption, but for Lily. Therapy had been a lifeline for her, helping her unpack her choices and understand the deeper insecurities that had driven her actions. The relationship between Ethan and Amelia remained complicated. They weren't friends in the traditional sense, but they had developed a mutual respect and understanding that allowed them to co-parent Lily effectively. Every decision they made was guided by one principle: what was best for their daughter. One sunny afternoon, Ethan and Amelia met at a park to celebrate Lily's 4th birthday. It was a small gathering, just close friends and family, but it was filled with love and laughter. As Lily squealed with delight over her balloons and cake, Ethan and Amelia stood on the sidelines, watching her with pride. "She's amazing," Amelia said, her voice tinged with emotion. "We did something right." Ethan nodded. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me, to both of us." For a moment, they stood in comfortable silence, their shared love for Lily bridging the gap between their past and their present. After the party, Ethan took Lily back to his house, where they spent the evening building a fort out of pillows and blankets. As they sat inside their creation, Lily looked up at him with wide, curious eyes. "Daddy, are you happy?" she asked. The question caught Ethan off guard. He thought about it for a moment, then smiled. "Yeah, Lily, I'm happy. As long as I have you, I'll always be happy." Lily beamed, wrapping her small arms around his neck. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, kiddo," Ethan replied, his heart full. In the months that followed, Ethan continued to rebuild his life. He started his own business, a woodworking shop that quickly became a local favorite. The work gave him a sense of purpose and fulfillment, and he loved the creative freedom it offered. He also reconnected with old friends, finding solace in their support and laughter. One day, while delivering a custom piece to a client, Ethan met someone who would change his life again. Her name was Claire, and she was warm, kind, and unflinchingly honest. Their connection was instant, but Ethan took his time, cautious after everything he'd been through. Claire understood his hesitations and gave him the space he needed, and over time, their bond deepened. For the first time since his marriage ended, Ethan allowed himself to hope for a future that included love again. Amelia, too, found a new sense of purpose. She threw herself into her work, earning a promotion that allowed her to provide a stable life for Lily. She also became an advocate for survivors of domestic harassment, using her experiences with Liam to help others find their strength. It was a cause that gave her life new meaning and helped her heal in ways she hadn't expected. While she still carried the weight of her past mistakes, Amelia had learned to forgive herself. She and Ethan remained cordial, their interactions focused on co-parenting, but there was a quiet understanding between them, a recognition of how far they'd both come. The final chapter of Ethan and Amelia's story came full circle one crisp autumn day as they watched Lily's first school play together. Seated in the auditorium, surrounded by other proud parents, they shared a smile as Lily delivered her one line with confidence and enthusiasm. After the play, they took Lily out for ice cream, laughing as she recounted every detail of her performance. It was a simple, joyful moment, but it encapsulated everything they had worked so hard to achieve. As they said their goodbyes, Amelia turned to Ethan, her expression earnest. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for being there when it mattered." Ethan nodded, his smile kind but resolute. "We made it through, that's what matters." And just like that, Ethan and Amelia went their separate ways, each heading toward a future that was brighter and more hopeful than the past they had left behind. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was real, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love, even in its most complicated forms. To our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey through Ethan's story. It's been a wild ride, filled with highs and lows, but ultimately it's a tale of growth, redemption, and finding peace in the aftermath of chaos. If you've enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Your support helps us bring you more incredible stories like this one. Until next time, take care and keep listening.